Hi, and welcome to Game & Read.
This week we are finally back with another Game & Read pairing video. It's been a while since we've done one of these. About a month. We've been on vacation. So here we are getting back in it.
We're back!
Yes. So today we are continuing our Chronicles of Narnia pairing.
Journey.
Our pairing. And this week we read the books from the Chronicles of Narnia series, Prince Caspian and Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
And I continued to play Ni no Kuni.
We're talking about all of it within the context of one game.
So, quick synopsis of Prince Caspian. It's been a while. The Pivenses are back in England. They're sitting on the train station waiting to go to school, and they get sucked back into Narnia. And they find that like hundreds and thousands of years have passed in Narnia time, and this terrible ruler is conquered, and the talking beasts are apparently no more. And
no more magical creatures, just humans.
It's no good, and they run into this dwarf, and the dwarf tells the story of Prince Caspian, the young prince who is trying to defeat his uncle and reclaim Narnia. And the children are involved, and of course, Aslan is involved, and they try and defeat the evil king and bring Narnia back to its magic glory.
Yes. And then in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Lucy and Edmund, the two younger Pivenses, get sucked into Narnia, this time with their annoying cousin Eustace. And they are sucked into Narnia just a few years later in Narnia time, so they meet up with now King Caspian as he is going on this eastward journey to try and find this expedition that had gone awry many years beforehand and find the land that Aslan comes from, the edge of the world. At a certain point it becomes totally uncharted, and they're going to try and find where it all stops. And much like the Odyssey, they encounter numerous weird islands that are all moral tests and different things going on. So there's a lot of different stops along the way, but it's all just one continuous journey that then concludes at the edge of the world.
So our discussion topic for today is children and emotions. And the reason that we really wanted to talk about this is actually because of the character Eustace in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Eustace, like Peter said, is the Pivenses' annoying cousin. He is really annoying, and he complains all the time. He gets pleasure out of annoying other people. I mean, he comes into a room and irritates Edmund and Lucy, and they try and ignore him, and he thinks it's fun. He has this journal that he keeps, and he just writes all these things that are not really true.
Complete lies, really.
They're complete lies. They're really disparaging towards all the other characters. He's so bad that he can't even get sold into slavery. That's how bad he is.
Now, you might be thinking, wow, Eustace seems like a real crappy kid. However, C.S. Lewis does this thing where he explains why he's such a crappy kid in not so subtle ways, where he is actively critiquing what I'm guessing he saw as negatives in how children are treated at the time of writing this book. He makes a specific point to mention that Eustace is in a very modern family. His parents, they only have one child. They send him to a school where he does not get beaten for misbehaving. They say that he only discusses things like trade and taxes and things like that. Things no kids really talk about, but he doesn't like fantasy books and whatever else. He's a vegetarian. So C.S. Lewis seems to be very active in saying that these aspects of raising a child in this manner create bad children. And it's so not subtle that it's almost flabbergasting at times, where he's just like, so if you raise your kids like that and you don't smack them for misbehaving, they're gonna be total crapheads.
Right. And Eustace has a change of heart, but only after he's turned into a dragon, and then converted basically by Aslan. Aslan comes and saves him from the dragon fate, and then he realizes how terrible he was being, and he apologizes and is like a new person. I think that was said like 4 or 5 times, that he was, you know, total change of heart, new person, and it's because of Aslan. That's the reason.
We found some exception to this characterization of Eustace, not because we didn't think he was annoying and obviously lying and really not a nice kid. If we saw this kid in person, we would think he's a jerk too. However, when you kind of create this archetype around these characteristics, which I think most people nowadays find neutral to good, you're not hitting children, not eating meat. A lot of people think that's a good thing. Some people just don't care. But it's just so heavy-handed. Something
that we talked about when we were discussing the character of Eustace and the characterization of these traits is that C.S. Lewis really disparages any vulnerability, weakness, doubt, anything like that. So even in other books, in Prince Caspian, Susan is really doubtful as to why they should go on this adventure when they get sucked back into Narnia. She's like, do we really want to do this? And she is talked about really negatively, not just by the narrator, but by other characters. Yeah. So Eustace is one example of the rejection of weakness, the rejection of vulnerability, the rejection of questioning what is going on. C.S. Lewis very clearly portrays these as negative qualities, whereas you should be adventurous and brave and ready to go.
And totally fine with being sucked into a fantasy world in the middle of your day and not being upset about it. Because Eustace is upset, Lucy and Edmund are like, yeah, we're back in Narnia, and he's just like, why am I on a boat? We were just sitting in the bedroom before.
Right.
So Eustace just kind of gets, sandbagged with all this crap, and then gets made fun of and, taken mercilessly for being upset at the fact that he has to be on this boat journey where everyone else got to volunteer and he just gets thrown on it.
Exactly. So in contrast to the way C.S. Lewis portrays doubt and vulnerability and weakness, Ni no Kuni has a totally different approach. The whole concept of brokenheartedness really takes these qualities that C.S. Lewis rejects in children and in people and turns it around completely. Because the idea of brokenheartedness is you've lost a quality, you've lost something, but that doesn't make you bad. Just because you've lost your enthusiasm and you're complaining, that doesn't make you a bad person. And I think that's a really awesome way that Ni no Kuni approaches the complexity of emotion. I mean, Oliver has to go help these people. He's not judging them. He's just like, oh, I need to help them get their kindness back, their restraint back, their enthusiasm back. He's not saying you're a bad person.
It is Oliver's duty to help them adjust their emotions and their feelings so that they feel it better. Mind you, it's through a magical amulet, but, it goes through just the same. Whereas Aslan, when he comes and he goes, you've done something wrong, this is your punishment, or this is your this, it's always very judgmental, and that's possibly because he's a Christ godlike figure or something else, or that's just how C.S. Lewis interprets how a Christ godlike figure would be interacting with these people. But we both found the Ni no Kuni situation much more agreeable, at least in sort of the mind frame we seem to be in nowadays, where somebody going through some sort of emotional breakdown of a different thing or is quote-unquote broken-hearted, it's not necessarily from a personal flaw that they should just be able to pull themselves out of, and it's maybe something that they need help with or out of their control.
The great thing I think about the broken-hearted system is that often Oliver will go up to people and no one knows why they're like that. There's this husband and wife that continue to pop up.
Traveling merchants.
That's the traveling merchants. They're literally everywhere. And one of them is always brokenhearted. And it's different things, but one of them is always brokenhearted and the other is always like, I don't know why they're acting like that. I don't know what's going on. I just want, you know, my whatever back. I want my spouse back. And then when you unbreak their heart, mend, when you complete their heart with whatever they're missing, the formerly brokenhearted is like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I was acting like that, but I feel so much better. So it's this idea that they may not even know why they're acting like that. And so it's like Peter said, it's not a character flaw. It's not even something they may be able to get themselves out of. It's something they may not even know what is going on. And I think that really that shows the many sides of emotions and the many sides of humanity in a way that C.S. Lewis does not.
Yeah. Oliver, at the beginning of Ni no Kuni, is a crybaby even before his mom dies. Then his mom dies and he's in this very sullen mood. And instead of being told, that's wrong, you should do this, that's considered part of his strength. His connection to his mother gives him power throughout the game. And it's just a much better framing, I think, of quote-unquote moral weakness or just feeling vulnerable, rather than C.S. Lewis, which seems very pushy and, you know, you have to do this because it is the moral right thing to do.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni has a lot more blurred lines when it comes to what is right and what is wrong. And the qualities of vulnerability, of questioning, of doubt, of weakness, those are tools, and those are just part of going on a really huge adventure to possibly save the world.
Yes. Now, with that sort of moral idea in your head, we're going to switch over and talk about violence with these children characters. So Ni no Kuni, 2 of the 3 characters you control are children. The other one is a youngish man.
Though you see him as a child.
Yes, but you don't control him when he's a kid. And then in Chronicles of Narnia, all the books we've read, the oldest protagonists are teenagers. And both in the Ni no Kuni game and in C.S. Lewis's books, we have a lot of action. There's a lot of fighting and battles, depending on which book you're reading and where you are at the game, but it's a main aspect of both of these things. However, we found that they tend to treat those types of violence a little bit differently. C.S. Lewis, for all his moral righteousness, definitely believed in the idea of a just war.
Absolutely.
Because there is a lot of fairly gory battle descriptions in a lot of the books. Then I believe both Prince Caspian and Horse and His Boy, which we talked about a few weeks ago, there are specific mentions of main characters beheading their enemies. With
no moral qualms about it.
Yes, it never comes up later.
It never comes up. You see no potentially negative reaction. You see no, like, hesitation or fear. I mean, Prince Caspian beheads someone and it's just like, cool, that's great, let's keep going.
Had to do it.
And I think Edmund or Peter, one of them beheads someone, and again it's the whole, oh well, we had to do that because they were the bad guys. There's no question that this is what you do, and even though you're a child, beheading is normal.
And so even in Ni no Kuni, you are actively fighting tons and tons of monsters, and it's kind of left open to interpretation whether or not the monsters die or faint, like in Pokemon or something like that. However, I think even if you read it as those monsters are dead, there's still a bit of a difference in how gory it is shown. And I will make the argument here that I think if you're going to have active violence, you need to have some way of digesting how that interacts. So while Ni no Kuni doesn't have over-the-top violence, that's why it kind of doesn't need to digest it as much as, say, C.S. Lewis and Chronicles of Narnia, where it talks about these grand battles and not just saying it was crazy, but actually going into details about injuries sustained from swords and other things, and then just leaving it there. It's there for the action and then just is not really taken to another level. even to justify it.
And even in Ni no Kuni, I mean, I just fought a boss in which I defeated the boss, and the boss didn't die. It actually spit up the thing I needed and then was normal again. So even in that
happens with several bosses.
It happens a lot, and even in that, it shows, I think, this, you know, they're battles, but they're not fatal battles, or they're battles and it's a release rather than a death, which I think C.S. Lewis just says, well, you need to see that these are just battles, and the gore actually helps you see that these are necessary and good and justified violence.
Yes.
Which, when the protagonists are children, it's really unsettling that the violence is at that level with young people.
Now, the last thing I think I want to say about the Chronicle of Narnia books is that even though we've come down fairly hard on them for some of the more thematic things we've noticed throughout the books, I found Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Prince Caspian to both be very enjoyable, for the most part, fantasy stories. They're really interesting journeys and just classic kind of fairy tales about kids going into a crazy world. There's some sort of strife or adventure going on, and joining in and going through interesting experiences.
I loved Voyage of the Dawn Treader. That's, I think, my favorite one we've read so far, because they do visit all these crazy places and they encounter such a variety of people and beasts and creatures and challenges that, like Peter said, it is a really good fantasy story. Yeah, some of the themes are problematic, but I have yet to find a book in which something is not problematic.
Well, we have used this episode very much as a way to kind of slam our thoughts against C.S. Lewis's. We do still appreciate and enjoy reading these books. So that's just our kind of coming back to, hey, they're still pretty good to read for fun. So that's all we have for this episode. You can check out all of our previous posts and all of our other content we have going on at gameandread.com.
You can also, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at gameandread. We have official accounts, and we tweet and gram daily, if not multiple times a day.
Gramming every day.
Gramming every day. Hashtag Gram Life. So follow us at Game and Read.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.